I'm William from William Palm Fine Art, and I'm just going to do a quick little watercolor wash of a winter scene here on this nice square piece of paper. I'm kind of preparing for a workshop, and I thought I'd give a little heads up of some of the kind of fun things we're going to do. Um, on Monday evening, I'm offering a workshop. Basically, what if Bob Ross painted with watercolors? And this fun little painting. I've just started an art. I just finished setting up an art show, and I am kind of looking forward to just bringing the fun out of art in this. So a nice, quick, relaxing way, or something to play with watercolors, is really to learn some basic techniques like wash techniques and layering techniques that can be done quickly and rather in a fun manner. So I'm kind of looking forward to doing this. Now, one of the first things I like to do, when I do this, when I get my paper a little wet, I'm just using some basic brushes. I have a small set of watercolors here for a landscape set, and I do have some blue paint in a palette to help me play with some of these skies in here. But I think this will give me enough paint to get this done. Now I'm doing a wet on wet wash. Basically, I'm layering water on my paper. I'm going to take a nice piece of paper towel here, and I'm going to be lifting this out. Now for this painting, I'm only going to be using a couple of paint brushes. I'm going to be using a large flat brush for this. This is going to help me kind of cover that paper and kill off some of the white. I'll be using a round brush, and I'll also be using a larger round brush to get into some of the areas that I want to do. Now these brushes should hold a decent amount of water so that and color, so that when I play with the paint, it should be ready to go. Alright, one of the first things, again with this wet on wet wash, I'm going to be putting in something kind of sky-like for this little quick winter scene, and I might lead this into coming in here. Now I'm pulling some paint out of my palette. Maybe since we had all these winter storms, maybe I'll go for a little hint of a stormy-ish sky here. So I'm just going to take some of my blue paint. I'm using an ultramarine blue in my paint set, but whatever color blue you have should do. And I'm mixing this with a little brown. Now the brown I'm using is a burnt umber, and this burnt umber should give a kind of grayish glow. I hit a little violet in there. I'm sorry. That's kind of cool looking. Now I'm going to leave that alone. Anyway, one of the first things I'm going to do here is just get a wash in. Use this water to stretch the color out and allow the painting to kind of come to life. And I'm just going to bring this in here, and right away in this kind of little Bob Rossy feel, I'm just going to get maybe a little hint of something coming down into this foreground area. So as I do this, I'm going to make sure I have enough color in here. Maybe do a little lifting out. I'm using some paper towel. Decided I wanted some kind of storm edge in here, and I'm going to come in and pretty much with this big round brush, I'm going to come in and I'm going to put some cloud work in here while the paper is wet. For this, I'm going to make the color a bit on the thick side so it holds up to the water. And I'm just going to drop these grayish colors that I made with my blue and brown with a circular motion into the work. Now you might see some texture coming up here. I'm going to use the water to really kind of knock this out of there. Get a nice good load of paint on my brush. Can't see this, I have this off screen for now. I am going to come in here and let some layers of wash come in. And I think I'm gonna see if I can take me off the screen so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Excuse me for 1 second. Okay, I was going to try to get my picture off of there, but that's okay. Learning as we go. I am going to continue to play with these blues a little bit in the sky. And I'm just going to get some definition in these clouds. I'm making soft round marks. I'm also going to allow maybe some of the white areas to show through. Now, one thing I love about watercolor when I play with this, while my paper is pretty damp, I can get a beautiful natural feel just by tapping in here. And you might notice that some of the watercolors appear to spread, and that's the water playing with the paint. This is one thing I really love about painting with watercolors is when you're sketching or making an image, you can get some interesting, beautiful effects just by controlling how much water is in here. Now I'm gonna pull up some more paint, and again, maybe in a future video I'll make sure to get the paint in here where you could see my palette where I'm mixing color, but I'm really loading up my paintbrush so that when I do touch color to this, when I do touch color to my piece, the general idea here is I want to make sure I have a stronger color. So you control watercolors basically by selecting the amount of water in there, and I'm coming in with a darker color now, and I'm making sure that this is a little bit stronger. Now I'm using a little hint of a deep blue that is mixed with, I switched into an indigo blue, and this color here kind of makes a nice black when you mix it with a brown or with its pieces. And this little cloud surface here, I'm going to allow some of these areas to just kind of drip and play. Now I'm just playing for now. I'm going to steal a little more violet paint in here, I think, and maybe just while my paper's damp, if that gets a little too dry, I can dip that brush in that water. Another thing I love about watercolors, it's a very immediate paint, so anything I do in here is just gonna kind of immediately make a mark, possibly even stain the paper. And people kind of, I find that people kind of fear this when they're painting. They're like, oh my god, it's so permanent, I don't know what to do. But if you just kind of let the paint and the water play, you'll get some pretty amazing things that just kind of happen. Now, I'm not going to blow dry this right now, but if I wanted to let this set up for a minute, I could dry it. I can let it dry, I could blow dry it with a blow dryer, or just let this sit and see what happens. Now, while the paper's wet and the color's here, you might see some of these areas that look like they're fading into each other. And every once in a while, if I kind of watch that, I can move some of this around and just say, hey, this is where I want this color to go, or this is where I want this color. If I want it to stop, or if I don't want it to spread out uncontrollably, I can blow dry it or just see what the color is going to do. Now, watercolor, again, just such a beautiful thing. I am gonna see if I can drop just a touch more color in here. Now I'm using an even stronger color, and hopefully it will hold up to the light. One thing I like to tell people, I teach classes at a local art center, and when I do a painting demo like this, I'm usually introducing people to watercolors and saying, hey, let's just play with the paint and see what happens. Now in this little scene, I am going to ignore that sky for a minute. I'm just going to see what happens and how the color kind of plays with yourself. It's kind of some of the joy I get in painting watercolors. Some people get frustrated with this part, and some people want to overwork this part. And it just relax and let the watercolors do its job. And Sometimes you get some interesting surprises that just kind of happen here. I do feel like I want to dab. I feel like a little snowman here. I do have some winter pictures off to my side. I'm just gonna come in here. I'm using the same color that I had in the sky. I am gonna play a little lifting out here, a little blending too, just to get some shadow. Just gonna make this little guy look kind of three-dimensional. I may or may not decide to throw something in here like decorations on him or something. Just a little water. I am taking the paintbrush, gonna try to do what's called lifting out. Now that's when you kind of pull back at the paint. Now watercolors do kind of stain, so I usually tell people at this point, if you get to something like this and you're like, oh my god, I need it to be better, well, one thing you can do is just kind of add, sorry, I want to get some blue violet in that shadow. Mixing some blue here and some violet. And just keeping my color relatively strong. You could see it bleeding right in. And it's going to hopefully make a little shadow on this snowman. I'm not going to try to over detail this. I'm going to let this set up, let it dry for a minute. If I wasn't recording this or trying to do this in a quick study or in a kind of fun, enjoyable way, I might try to use some of that water. I might try to stop some of that paint, or maybe even if I did this again, I would start with the snowman and go from there. I do want to get some type of tree in here. Now, for this one, I'm going to hold my paintbrush pretty straight up and down. And I'm going to try, and hopefully this is dry enough, and I'll be okay if this kind of fades into the distance a little. But I think I'm going to get a couple of little trees in here. And again, I'm using a pretty thick paint. This is almost like, feels like you're drawing with watercolors. And I'm just doodling with my paintbrush. I'm kind of thinking, hey, how would this come out if I draw with a marker? I am very experimental when I draw and sketch with watercolors, so I really try not to let things bother me. If some of these sketches that I do for planning, if they come out perfect or fantastic, I'm of course thrilled. But if the little thing comes out and I feel like there needs to be a little rock here or something between the trees, I'm gonna get some more of my blue, make up that little black under here, maybe a couple shadows, make those shadows match the direction of the snowman so it looks like there's a little scene. Maybe even get over here. This is decisions for me right now. Gonna wake up some of these paints. Now this particular set's by that I'm playing with right now is a landscape set by Van Gogh. It's got a few colors in it that are great for autumn scenes, but I'm going to adjust these and let them play in my winter scene. I am, sorry I hit the camera there, just adjust that back. I am not too disappointed about how my piece kind of bled out in the sky. I think it has a nice emotional, impressionistic feel. I am going to put maybe something in the distance, a couple of little shapes just to say there's something back there, like some type of houses, maybe some distant pine trees. These would probably be a little more bluish, so I'm going to steal some blue paint from my other palette and just get a couple things going back here. I'm going to lift this back a little bit, dance my paintbrush around, and one thing I'm hoping is that this will give me some little scene in the distance. And I think for the scene I'm just gonna maybe put just the indication of things. I'm just kind of bouncing the brush around, hoping and thinking, hey, that might look like a house or a tree or something in the distance. And most of this I'm making is pattern. So if you like to do patterns, a little pattern like that set up behind my middle ground and my foreground space might give a little something of, hey, this is what's back here. Just enough. Oh, a little wet there. Hopefully this doesn't bloom on me. I'm gonna thicken up my color again. And again, just kind of say, okay. Now, I kind of have this swirl here. Looks a little bit like a path. So maybe I'll bring this out with some added definition. Let some of these areas here, I'm using kind of grayish color. I think I'll grab some more of my violet from this other set over here. And just kind of give the illusion that there's something back here. Now that my snowman's set up too, I'm also going to try to put in a couple of deeper shadows here. These will probably be stronger colors for this particular piece. Sometimes when I work, I like to play with color. Might be a good time too if I decide the snowman and make a homemade black here. Maybe the snowman's got a couple of little eyes. I'm just gonna hold this brush straight up and down and use the very point. And maybe he's got an arm, some stick a kid found, and go like this. Alright, now back to my little section here. The snowman's got a funny little feel to me. Now maybe back here I'm going to wet this paint a little bit. I do want this a little more transparent. And I guess if I was a little more Bob Ross's here, I'm going to say let's put another little tree. I'm just going to draw this right on top. As long as this is dry enough, this should coat. I do find with watercolors, sometimes a dark color will cover a thinner color. And again, just with the very tip of this brush, because I'm trying to be minimalistic in my brushes, I'm going to let this come up here and draw out some little sticks. And you can see how thin the tip of this round brush gets. So this brush comes to a great point. So if you have a brush that comes to a great point, you'll get a lot of mileage out of it. So I like brushes when I'm just going to give this a little coating. I'm going to layer this. Layering is when I put two or three colors on top of each other. And just kind of bring those trees where I think they may look in the foreground. I am going to put some more shadow down here and get these trees hopefully grounded in my little scene here. Maybe put a little something back there so we know there's something. I'm gonna grab the wrong blue. I'm gonna lift that back and hide it. Now, in some of the classes I teach, one of the first things I say is with the watercolors, if you make a mistake in a loose, kind of playful manner like this, I think it's just fun to try to hide it in the work. But we'll see. Alright, so my paint don't bleed too much. I'll let that set up for a minute. Maybe back here I am going to throw kind of bluish green in here, stealing some blue from my other palette. I'm going to mix this with one of these Van Gogh greens and hopefully get something that resembles a pine tree color. I don't want this too green for this scene. I'll try this. I got a mixture of almost like a blue-green mixture here. And yeah, Bob Ross would be like, okay, right here. And get a little tree. And for this pine tree for now, on the first go, some people like to put a brown tree trunk in there first. But sometimes I like to just dance my paintbrush around. I'm going to load some more color on that. And I like to make marks that I think look like a tree. So if I'm throwing a pine tree here, maybe this pine tree is going to get lost behind or next to the snowman. But when I'm given the idea of a little pine tree here, and I'm going to take some of that violet shadow and put it under here. I'm going to use some water to spread it out. That's getting a little gray. That shadow might peek out here on the other side of the snowman. I'm pretending light source comes from the right, goes off. Shadows, light areas are on the right, shadow areas are on the left. While that tree's setting up, I think that I'm testing my paper here. I think I'll just put one more in here. I'm going to switch to a slightly bigger brush. Now this brush is got a decent point on it too. Holds a ton of color and a ton of water, which is good for paintings like this because you can get a loaded brush and hopefully have it come out in a whole section. I'm going to dance this around. And this guy's a little bigger. I'm going to hope to get a nice little tree here. The snowman's going to look like he's hanging out with some trees. Now if I wanted to, I could throw a house in here, or I could draw shapes of kids playing. Even simple shapes that have a people-like look. When I dance this around, you might see little notes of texture peeking through the paint. I'm working on a drier surface, and I'll show this. I'll extend this tree down a little bit. And if you see, if I'm kind of just lightly grabbing the paint and letting it drag a little bit, and it gives a little speckle of whatever's underneath. So that might be nice for a little bit of a highlight, or nice for a bit of a nice little highlighter, like maybe some little tracks of snow or ice or pieces of light grabbing the tree. I'm just going to come in here now, and this should be dry enough. I got a thicker paint here, and just put a little water on there just so I can get a second variation of green. Now on this, sometimes with watercolor, and I do this all the time, and this is something I tell my students at the art center. Sometimes with watercolor, you just want to, when you're doing something like this, I'm putting shadows, trying to maybe give a little added depth to the scene, using a mixture of indigo blue, which is on my other set, and the green that I mixed for this pine tree. And I'm just going to try to come under here and get a couple of decorated areas. And my hope in here, again, just dancing this around, kind of thinking like, what if Bob Ross was using this big brush? And just kind of come in and go and make patterns. Now this is pretty easy to do. It's not, I'm sorry, I'm probably not even on the camera. Now this is pretty easy to do. It's not just making patterns and marks with the paintbrush. It's pretty relaxing, and I'm just having the mindset of having fun with this painting. And sometimes when I do paintings like this, I'm gonna put that shadow back in here. When I do paintings like this, sometimes I just enjoy getting some little thing going on in here. And sometimes I just like to doodle and draw with the paintbrush to brainstorm ideas. So when I am doing some work with the watercolors, or if I get a little brain stumped in my everyday, sometimes we get artist blocks, or sometimes we get upset in the day, a simple painting or a sketch like this can be pretty therapeutic. There's no necessarily great answer for the painting. It's just a fun little way to explore watercolors. if it looks as easy as I made it look, it can be. Painting becomes a little more frustrating sometimes when you're trying to do something a little bit more specific. And yeah, sometimes when you're looking at your colors, watercolor can be aggravating sometimes to people when it does things that you don't want it to do. But on the mindset on a sketch like this, I'm really trying to let the paint and the water play. And sometimes in that play, you get some things that just happen, like this little area of violet here almost to me has a misty kind of look. So I'm going to leave that alone. And I'm just going to say I'm not going to touch it. Now, if I was painting a more careful composition, I get a little bit more of this effect into other areas of my painting and just kind of see where that goes. All right, a couple more little things here. And I'm trying to get this done in about 30 minutes. I think we're at 24 minutes since my introduction. I'm going to come in. Layering is sometimes a fun little thing to do. I'm going to give this another layer and hopefully make this tree feel like it's coming out a little bit more. Sometimes when the paint dries, it can paint a little light. So a second layer will help give it a little extra flare or a little extra darkness. Maybe there's some little log or stick thing sticking here, so I'm just gonna make a little painted design here. Again, just using the tip of the brush, moving these colors around and saying, hey, how can I just get the idea that there's something there? And again, at the bottom, I think I do want to touch a shadow. The shadow a little darker over here. It's closer to us, so shadows might appear a little darker. I'm okay if that bleeds out in that little section. You can see in there where some of the color might look like it's coming together. And I think in here, I do want to take a minute. I think I was kind of stalling for this. I'll go back to my smaller brush here. Grab a little brown out of this landscape set and maybe just get a little structure in that tree. So the tree looks like it has branches, trunk. And sometimes in these pine trees you'll see a stick or two sticking out. I'm just using my brush to get a little structure in there. Just a little bit. And yeah, I sound like Bob. Just a little bit. Just a little tree. Now, in watercolor, a lot of this is, for me, is drawing and doodling and sketching. But again, just a nice little relaxing way to create a fun little painting. And hopefully I'm staying on this camera a little more. I'm getting very into my little square here. Again, I'm not working on anything terribly large. Watercolor painting, if you do it on a small size, can be very pleasing to do. I feel like I want just keep playing with this a little more. This should be dry enough where I think I want to put a little scarf on him now. And I should have done this first. I try to work light to dark when I play with watercolors. So I am gonna try to wet this orange. Now, when you are wetting your colors, you can see that color waking up. This color wakes up great. Very tip here. Very tip of that brush. And hopefully this will coat the dry. I don't want too much water in the brush on that one. It should keep the color a little more opaque. Just wanted to give a little indication of that there. And now I'm kind of looking around here to see what else can I do. And that I'll just I made a little mark here. and just give the idea that there's a little shadow or something in here. Maybe a couple of deeper colors to, like in this rock over here. Let that kind of stand out. You bring a little bit of that under here. And I can still see if there's anything else I want. I'm coming down here where this area looks maybe that's a little too dark. I'll wet my brush, steal some more dark purple. I left out things like don't be afraid of color here when you're playing with this, because if you play like you're afraid of color, it's not going to be great. But I'm just going to give maybe a couple little marks. Now I didn't play with the color enough. It's a little too violet, so I'm just going to coat that with a little bluish gray for my sky. I might even balance out that purple in that sky too and bring it somewhere else in the composition. I feel like I got a little path going on here. Dirty up some of this paint, mixing the violets and grays. And maybe I'll let this look like something swooping around that snowman there. Use some water and let that bleed a little bit. When you put the water down on the color, it can reactivate it. Now you can almost see that blotch of purple is going away. I think it's overworked. I can also lift it out like that. Now I didn't do much lifting out. I was originally gonna spend some time playing with lifting out on here, but sometimes this painting I kind of almost let direct me a little bit. Added things as I felt like they needed to be added, and really just kind of said, hey, let's just let this be. I think I'm going to throw one more little tree here now. I'm going to go more Bob Ross on this, where he would put that structure. A little mark and a couple of lines. It could look like branches. Steal some more of that pine green I made. We'll call it pine green for now. And when I put this down, whatever's under this is actually going to kind of mix in with the color a little bit. And I just felt like one more tree. I don't even think I'm painting this one identical to the way I painted the first two. Again, a beautiful thing with watercolors is that immediacy you can have. So I'm just gonna let this have a little more water in there, loosen that paint up. It's a little too thick. I don't want it to fight with the tree that's there. Now I got it a little too thin, so I'm gonna poof that color up a little bit more, make it thicker. I said poof it up. I'm gonna make the color just a little thicker. These trees hopefully will not look super confusing. Drop maybe a little more shadow in here. Make this tree kind of come out at us a little bit more clearly, like one in front of the other. And finally, maybe a little more shadow under these, just to make it a little more dramatic. All right. I think I like that side. I think I got a thing with threes today. 3, 3, and 3. All right. I don't want to overwork this, so I think I'll call it here. Again, just a fun little wintry sketch. Might be nice as a little card. Again, a little therapy, a little journaling, whatever you find playing with the colors. Hopefully you noticed, and hopefully you saw that I am trying to play light to dark in my colors. And whenever I put some of these other little tidbits in, like these little arms, that little fallen tree mark over here, the extra pine tree. The paint was a little thicker so that it would cover what's behind it. And again, just a nice, fun little way to play with paint, or at least I think so. And a little final touch here. I know Ross likes to sign used to like to sign all his stuff. So there we go. I'll just, very tip of this brush, mark in my name and call that one done for now. All right. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little exercise. Again, I am looking to host some watercolor workshops. I do have my first one is this Monday on February 2nd, and I thought it might be a nice way to spend a Monday night on a little workshop of relaxing and painting. And I will be hoping to make more of these videos as well. Again, this is just a sketch for me and playing around with this. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again real soon. Thanks. Have a great weekend.